Hello and welcome back to Art's Bookshelf Odyssey. My name is Art, and today I want to wrap up a couple of books that I've read over the past few weeks. First of all, I want to talk about a book called Flip This Zombie by Jesse Petersen. Again, this is the second book in the Married with Zombies trilogy. In this one, we have the main characters are the married couple from the first book, and their marriage has been saved. They are still together. They have started a zombie extermination business during the apocalypse and are just trying to survive. But then some things happen, as they are prone to do in a zombie novel. And they come across a scientist, and dare we say a mad scientist, who thinks that he might have found a cure for this zombie virus. So he wants them to go out and capture some live zombies so he can test it out. Now, she wants to see this happen, and her husband is very much against this. There are some lovely plot twists along the way that a couple you probably can see coming, but there's still a few surprises in there that were, at least for me. And it comes to a conclusion that has left me really anxious to read book 3, and I can't wait to see how this comes together. What I like about this series is it's not just all zombie killing and gore, but at its heart of the story, there is this real relationship between the man and his wife, and you are rooting for them to get through their issues and work it out and stay together. One of my concerns about their marriage is that the only thing that has brought them together is this apocalypse. And if it finds a cure, will that mean that their marriage might go back to the way it was before the apocalypse? Or have they actually found resolution and redemption of their marriage? So stay tuned and read those books. Again, it's called Flip This Zombie, and it's by Jess Petersen or Jesse Petersen. The next book I want to talk about is a thriller mystery called Local Woman Missing by Mary Kubica. Sorry, I'm not sure how to pronounce that name. Now, I first saw this book on sale at Barnes & Noble when I was there recently, and it looked really good, but I wasn't sure if I wanted to buy it because I wasn't sure about the author. But I saw that they had it available at the library, so I checked it out, and it was an audiobook. Essentially, what happens, it's a story of a couple women have disappeared along with a 6-year-old daughter, Delilah. They vanish. The question is, are these disappearances connected? And if they are, how? And the story itself jumps back and forth between 11 years ago and present day as the story is being revealed and the mystery is being understood. This story has a lot of great twists and turns along the way. I, again, did not see the solution coming at all. Which is always fun when that happens, and the author drops enough red herrings and tricks you along the way. There are some very hard passages to read, including one of a very traumatic examination by a doctor who is one of the suspects, and they were some of the people investigating the story are trying to get information, and it was just horrible to read, where he's basically violating her. It was very uncomfortable to read and very hard to read. Also, there was a pregnancy or a birth scene by the same doctor who was very callous and cruel in his delivery of this child. And it plays into the story. That was also very hard to read. I get very sensitive about reading about like violence, especially against violence against children. And this was borderline for me, but I don't think it was written in a way that glorifies that kind of violence, if that makes sense. Like it was very wrong and was made to feel wrong. So there was that, but an excellent mystery. Really, I would recommend it if you like thrillers and cold cases. This is a good story that involves those things. All right, so next I tried another Brandon Sanderson novel. I have it in my mind that I should like him, but I've really struggled with what I've read. I've read a couple of his first books, and I've been told that his later ones are better. So I decided to read Tress of the Emerald Sea, and that one was one that he wrote just recently and had just recently published. And it is more or less a standalone. I guess it's still set in the world of his fantasy stories, but it's a standalone. And I like how he described it at the end, that when he wrote it, it was kind of this idea that they had been watching The Princess Bride, and he and his family realized that Princess Buttercup didn't really do much through most of the film. And how interesting would it be to have, to retell the story, but from but actually have Princess Buttercup be the hero. So that's essentially what this story is. It's not a retelling of The Princess Bride, but it is a fantasy story told from the princess's perspective. So basically, the love of Tress's life gets kidnapped, and she has to go and find a way to rescue him from an evil sea witch. It was a great story. It was a lot of fun. It was funny, not bordering on parody, but close enough that it sent up a lot of tropes. And the narrator himself was just, I could listen to him. The man who's telling the story is one of the characters in the story, and what a great point of view that the narration had, because he is telling the story afterwards, after this all had occurred, and his character in the story is one that has been cursed by the witch, so he's not in his right mind, and he does all these kind of silly things, and including one line that I like, that one of the results of the curses is that he lost his sense of taste. And Tress thought he meant like he couldn't taste what food tasted like, but he meant taste as in, taste and how and the clothes you wear and the things you like. So they made fun of that. That was a lot of fun. So having read this book, I definitely get why people like Brandon Sanderson so much. Again, fantasy is not one of my go-to genres. I really struggle with a lot of the books, but this one really worked for me. And so if you are fantasy curious or want to try out Brandon Sanderson, I would suggest starting with this one, because now I am more interested to try some of his other works, knowing what he is capable of now, to go back and see how that develops or changes, and if there's some stories of his novels that I would enjoy reading. And then I tried a book called The Heretic's Daughter by Kathleen Kent. Now, I had read a trilogy of mysteries she wrote about a police detective who moves from New York City to Texas, and she faces a lot of pushback for that. She doesn't quite fit in well with the Texas culture, especially being a woman and a police officer, and they push back against her in that. So I wanted to go back and read some other things that she's written. So I started with her first book called The Heretic's Daughter, and it tells a story. I think it has connection to Kathleen Kent in real life, that she's actually writing about one of her ancestors. It is a fictional story set in and around the time of the Salem witch trials. And it wasn't quite what I was expecting it to be. It wasn't very spooky at all. It was more of just historical fiction. It's not really the type of book I usually read, but I know others who have read it said that they really enjoyed it. And so I just don't think that this book was for me, but the characters were really interesting, and just the tragedy of the whole situation surrounding the Salem witch trial is just infuriating. And Kent really helps you understand what is happening and the injustice of it. So yeah, I got through the book. It left me feeling angry again over the injustice. Not that was her fault as an author. She did an excellent job, as always, but not one that is my typical read. I found it overall kind of a slow read. I would have liked a little more action and a little more narrative, I guess. But you should try it out if that's a time period that you find interesting. That she doesn't, glamorize anything or make them to be actual witches, things like that. It just tells the story of a young girl, and her mother, who's been arrested for witchcraft during the Salem witch trial. So that was, again, The Heretic's Daughter by Kathleen Kent. But I will be reading more of her books. I enjoyed her trilogy of mystery so much. I want to read more of what she's written. And then I read Impossible Things by Connie Willis. Now, Connie Willis is a favorite science fiction writer, one of my favorite science fiction writers. And this is a collection of short stories and novellas that she has written over like the 1980s or so, and some early 90s stories. And overall, it was an okay collection. There were a few that I didn't enjoy as much. There were a couple that I really, really enjoyed. One was called Adieu, and it was set in the future, and it kind of follows this idea of what if we were politically correct and woke and all those things, and we took it to a very absurd extreme to the point where it's focused on a university setting, and the teachers are trying to figure out what they're even able to teach about Shakespeare because different phrases and situations and things are offensive to different groups. And the story, somehow Connie Willis was able to make the story not just a slam against liberals or a promotion of a conservative point of view, but she's able to make this funny and yet still offer some very thoughtful analysis to this trend that we see continuing today about even about like, should we ban books or not, or should we censor speech, and is there a certain level of things that should be censored, or should we just say that if you don't like it, don't read it, or do you you know what I mean? Am I making sense? I hope I am. If not, if I am, that's the first time today, I think. But anyway, yeah, that's kind of what is explored in that story. There's a couple other good ones that I enjoyed, but that's the one that really stuck out to me as my favorite in that collection. Have you read any Connie Willis? I would recommend reading her book, Doomsday Book. It's about time travel. She writes a lot of stories that are set at Christmas, which I'm a big fan of. And she just always writes very thoughtful stories. And then I guess I'll just add here, I did finish a cozy mystery called Once Upon a Grind by Cleo Coyle. It's set at a coffee house in New York City. And this is like book 14, I think, in that series. And we find the main character. She is her boyfriend's been is a police is a police officer, a detective in New York City in the murder investigation. But he's actually been working in Washington, D.C. as a kind of a side quest. I don't know what you call it. Working, I think, with the CIA, it was, or FBI. I can't remember now. And he's wanting her to move with him to Washington, D.C. Claire Cozy, that's the main character's name. And she's wanting to stay in New York. And the story also involves a murder. Her ex-husband gets framed for this murder, or is accused of this murder. This is set in a world of there's a like a Renaissance type fair going on with fairy tale story characters in this festival. Overall, this was not one of the, in my opinion, I didn't enjoy this book as much as some of the earlier novels in the story. I feel like there's a couple elements of this story that got a little too fanciful for what Cleo Coyle writes, including a coffee that makes the main character be able to see visions and its ongoing effect. Like, I have a hard time believing that a coffee that could do that would actually be acceptable to sell to the public, because it kind of had the effect of like a vision quest kind of thing that some cultures have. So it was really weird. But, when you get to book 14 in a series, you want to try new things. And that I appreciate. I do appreciate when they try, to take the story in new directions, just to give it something different, a new life. I don't always want to read the same thing every book. And I believe her series has over 20 now in it. So yeah, if she wants to take a few books to do something weird, go for it. I'll keep reading them, because overall, I really like the story. I was, again, a little frustrated between, in the relationship between Claire and her boyfriend, or fiance, I think, maybe at this point, that he almost felt a little manipulative about wanting her to move with him to DC. And I can't really say more without giving away some plot points, but we'll see how this gets resolved. But yeah, that's, again, Once Upon a Grind. It's part of the Coffee House Mystery series by Cleo Coyle. One I recommend. Overall, the series is great. And some really fun side characters as well. All right, so wow, 6 books I read since my last update. This is what happens when you listen to audiobooks a lot and you read more than one book at a time. That's the method to my madness. So let me know what you're reading. If you've read any of these books, have you read anything great lately that I might enjoy? I love thrillers, mysteries, classics, sci-fi, and the occasional fantasy, if it's not too bad. All right, that'll be it for today. As always, make sure you like and subscribe. At the time of this recording, I should say, I've got almost 800. I just crossed 820 subscribers, and that's just really amazing. I'm getting close to 1,000, and I think it can happen this year. So if you haven't yet subscribed, please do. I'd love to have you on board to talk about all these great books I'm reading and whatever it is you're reading. Go ahead and comment below. We'll keep the conversation going there. Thank you so much. Many of you have been commenting on some of my latest videos, and we've had some great conversation around books. This is why I wanted to start my channel, is to find bookish people to talk about these great stories. So thanks for joining me. Make sure you like and subscribe. And until next time, happy reading. Take care.